Meanwhile, negotiations over a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas are ongoing, despite difficult talks being mediated by the United States, Qatar and Egypt. The talks come as a March 10th deadline set by the Israelis loom. For more on this, let's cross to SABC News correspondent Alex Cadier. Alex, perhaps we can begin with you giving us a bit of an update in terms of where we are at with all of this. And we know that the situation in Palestine is certainly a grave one right now. But let's talk to the talks that are going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, well, those ceasefire negotiations are ongoing. The United States has said a deal is still possible. What we've been hearing for the last few days is a bit of a back and forth between Hamas and Israel, accusing each other of stalling these talks. Now, Hamas said that it is down to Israel to accept the terms and that they were still delaying any deal being reached. Now, the United States went against that, saying it actually is now on Hamas to accept the very rational proposals put forward by Israel, and that is the blame game we've been seeing for these last few days, something you would expect between two warring sides trying to come from to a tenuous ceasefire agreement. One of the latest proposals is a one-day pause in the fighting that could possibly allow for some humanitarian aid to flow into Gaza, much needed humanitarian aid to flow into Gaza, and it would allow Hamas to take stock of where the remaining hostages are and where the surviving hostages are, because that is one of the requests by Israel, is that Hamas provide a full list of those surviving hostages, and Hamas said it simply cannot do that at the moment until a ceasefire deal is reached. So those are the things on the table at the moment, a possible one-day truce then leading to a 6-week ceasefire. That deadline, that March 10th deadline, is now 3 days away.
Yeah, it certainly is coming and approaching very, very fast. But still, in terms of the situation in Hamas, very desperate. And as you were saying, I mean, a one-day ceasefire just will not bring any relief that is desperately needed in that area. Perhaps that deadline, if in fact there is no decision by that March 10th deadline, what happens then?
Well, what happens then is a military operation by the Israeli forces in Rafah, where more than 1 million Palestinians are refugees, where that humanitarian catastrophe, as the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, described it, is ongoing, where children are dying of malnutrition, according to the World Health Organization. That military operation in Rafah has been refuted, rejected, warned against by the United States, by some of Israel's closest ally, because the death toll and the human suffering that it would cause would be unconscionable. Those were the words used by US officials as well. So really, that will be the looming pressure. You also have the fact the holy month of Ramadan will be starting around the 10th of March. That is also a flashpoint, particularly here in Jerusalem, at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound behind me, which Israeli officials had said they wanted to restrict access for Muslim worshippers. Now, security forces here have pushed back very strongly, saying that would only inflame tension. So while a deal is still being negotiated, there's also the looming threat of a flashpoint of tensions ratcheting up here in Jerusalem as well.
Yeah, just finally, before I let you go, obviously the other issue that we're looking at is, of course, South Africa's involvement, and South Africa again appealing to the World Court on Gaza and saying that the threat, as you've been saying as well, of an all-out famine is looking highly likely. Talk to us about South Africa and again approaching the World Court on this whole situation in Gaza, and you know, if the ruling has served any deterrent whatsoever, and you know, where to from here on that ruling too.
Well, it's wholly rejected by Israeli authorities. They see this as a profoundly unjust misuse of the International Court of Justice. That is the perspective from the Israeli authorities, who feel like they, on October 7th, were subjected to atrocities and will now be being accused of genocide. They will join a chorus of international pressure, however, on Israel to provide aid to Gaza, to allow humanitarian aid to Gaza, and for an end to these hostilities and a ceasefire, at least for those 6 weeks. So that action by South Africa has been heard around the world, not necessarily heard by Israeli authorities and the Israeli military, but certainly joins in a chorus of international pressure. We've seen a ratcheting up of the pressure by the United States as well. So certainly joining that chorus, hoping to reach a deal here in Israel.
Right, Alex, let's leave it there. Coming to us live from Jerusalem as he brings us that report. That's, of course, SABC's correspondent, Alex Cadier.